Team will be here at 4:30. Y'all have a great evening.
This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Good evening and welcome to WAAY 31 Law Call. I'm Sharon Doviet. We've got a special show for you tonight. We're doing something a little bit different. We're talking about motorcycle wrecks and wreck reconstruction. And we've got two experts that do this all the time and have been doing it for years. Now's your chance to learn about how accident reconstruction works. And if you're a motorcyclist, or if you love motorcycles, this may be something very informative for you too. The phone number to call in your questions, 256-536-0077. You can call in and be live on the air with your question, or you can text us to that same number and we'll get your text right here. You can also email a legal question any day of the week. You send it to lawcall@waaytv.com, and when we get to a show that's on point, we'll pull some out tonight. You know, car and truck accidents are bad enough, but a motorcycle versus a car or a truck, the motorcycle is so much lighter. The car's going to win,
That's right.
and you're lucky if you get away with just damage to the motorcycle and not damage to the motorcyclists.
You are, you know, and we handle those type cases, and they're different. You know, everybody's got that crazy uncle who won't stop riding the motorcycle, right? You always say, hey, it's dangerous. Look out for everybody. And those are some of the worst cases with regard to injuries. And so, oftentimes jurors, they're prejudiced against motorcycle riders, and we see that. So we have to bring in, oftentimes I had a case years ago, my client, sergeant in the military, was riding home from work. Somebody pulled out in front of him, was hurt real bad. And the question was, the jury thought that my client was speeding just because he was on a motorcycle and the engine was loud. And that's what they used when they went back there. You talk to jurors after cases. So we've got a special team tonight we're going to talk to you about, but what we have to do to bring in an expert to do a reconstruction. Alabama adopted what's called the Daubert standard. Basically, what that means is the expert has to be vetted properly. They have to have a background in that particular science that they're going to apply. And I'll get to ask questions of the expert. The defense attorney will ask questions of the expert to determine to the judge or provide information to the judge that this person is qualified to provide expert testimonies. That's the first step. The second is that the science is reliable, i.e., that it's relied on in that particular field, and it's based with a method that can be vetted, that can be tested. And then you have to establish your facts into evidence that that particular expert can rely on. And once that expert applies the facts properly to whether it's a computer model or reconstruction formula, whatever they're using, the judge then is the gatekeeper to determine whether or not that evidence, you know, it comes in, and can we present this to a jury? Okay. Now, we've got a couple of experts tonight with us. We've got Danny Roberts out of Alabama and Michael Kerley from Kerley Reconstructionists. And so basically, we're going to show you guys a video in a bit, but I want to introduce you guys. So, Michael, you're here in town, and Danny, you're in Arkansas. You're ex-police, yes, law enforcement. And then we're going over your background. You were crazy.
I'm Huntsville.
You were a test driver or test motorcycle for Dunlop and a test motorcycle rider. Yeah. So you've had your share of wrecks as well.
Quite a few, and a long history prior to that,
right,
of racing and riding. So.
How did you guys get into accident reconstruction, Michael?
So I started actually in law enforcement a long time ago, about 28 years ago. And I was a police motorcycle instructor and rider for a long time, and decided that I really liked accidents. I liked putting the puzzles together, and I liked being able to figure out why accidents were actually happening and figuring out how to mitigate them from there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so you did accident reconstruction courses through your law enforcement and then applied that out in the field.
Correct, yes. And then I ended up, actually I was I enjoyed it so much, I actually continued with that education, and I actually helped teach law enforcement at this time.
Okay.
And both of you still ride motorcycles. So those of you who love it, we get it. It's fun, right? And even doing what you do, you still continue to ride motorcycles. We've got some video. So you make the law call on this one. We pulled some video. This is from YouTube, and this is somebody's taking video of his own ride. We think this is in the U.S. It looks U.S., and you can see the speed down there, which if this is in miles per hour, my goodness, this is what, when Will is saying a lot of people are prejudiced against motorcyclists, they assume this is the way they're riding on the road. So this rider is about to come up on the back end of something.
Here he comes right there.
He survived this accident.
You know,
but that kind of video that's what you're up against with a jury, thinking every motorcyclist is going to be like this. And our experts can be hired by the plaintiff or the defendant. You might be in a vehicle and a motorcyclist causes the accident. You may want to hire a reconstructionist to prove you weren't the problem.
That's exactly. I mean, sometimes I might be with the truck driver
Yeah.
in this particular case. Sometimes I'm with the motorcycle rider.
Yeah.
The facts of this case, hey, not an expert, but it looks like he was speeding.
Yeah.
And he ran up the back of that truck. And so the truck could have property damage, maybe injures the guy in the truck. Now, I get it. The motorcycle rider probably had more significant injuries. Now, we have to prove in Alabama it's a contributory negligence state.
Which means?
Which means that if the jury found, for example, if the motorcycle rider had an offensive case against the truck driver, he would have to show that he did not do anything to cause or contribute to that wreck or his own injuries. And I think a layman's term could say, okay, well, it looks like he was speeding, so therefore he violated the law. I may call an expert in to say, okay, what if, okay, the engine was loud.
Yeah.
What if the camera was sped up? And I'm just making an argument for the motorcycle rider. What if the camera was sped up? You got the motorcycle engine revving, and it was 164 kilometers per 2 hours. Let's say there was some type of issue with that particular motorcycle that he was going within the speed limit. As an expert, Michael and Danny, how would you go about evaluating that case to determine, yes, okay, is there a black box in a motorcycle? You're trying to show in this particular case that the driver was not speeding, or what happened in the particular case. So there's a couple of different issues. One, speed of the motorcycle. Two, let's assume it's a braking issue with the motorcycle. Let's say the motorcycle was doing something proper, but the braking mechanism failed. How would you go about evaluating that motorcycle to determine whether or not that the tire was applicable or okay for this particular motorcycle?
Well, you would want to do, the first thing you'd want to do is a side inspection, see if there's any roadway evidence left, skid marks, slide marks, that sort of thing. You know, police reports are useful. They're not always admissible, but you can get a lot of information to sort of outline things together. You'd certainly want to do a bike inspection as soon as possible.
Okay. Looking for what?
You're looking for damage. You're looking at the tires. Like Michael said earlier, on a motorcycle, everything kind of begins and ends with the tires.
Okay.
Whereas a car, the tires generally try to isolate the occupants in the car. On a motorcycle, the rider is very much part of the motorcycle, and those tires dictate everything. Mm-hmm. So you look for a lot of tire evidence.
Do motorcycles have a black box like
some do?
Will was asking?
A lot of Kawasaki's do. I think some BMWs, Harley Davidsons, you can access through the infotainment system, but it's not as universal as car or truck.
Okay.
So they're more event data recorders. Some ATVs even have them, but they're more data loggers than event recorders. They're not simple. A black box is a layman's term for them. But they record certain pieces of data depending on the make, model, and year. So some do have them, not all. So that's really where we come in, and you can call us and let us know, hey, what do you have, and we can let you know.
You usually don't have video, right? So if you don't have video and somebody's claiming, the motorcyclist is claiming the truck driver in front of him slammed on the brakes and stuff, what else might you be able to find for evidence to prove the motorcyclist is at fault in this?
So there's also a lot of apps. Like a lot of people have your cell phone is an accelerometer. A lot of people don't realize that your phone knows how fast you're going.
Okay.
Your phone knows your distance traveled between different GPS points. Your phone knows when you fall, when, different things like this. So there are a lot of people that have motorcycle apps that are tracking their different GPS locations, like Life 360. Kawasaki, they have different rider apps. There's different apps out there that are tracking different movements that have the potential to have data that can be used.
So this particular video, it looked to all of us, I think, that the driver was speeding and ran in the back of this truck. Yeah. Let's assume that if it's a products liability case against the manufacturer of the motorcycle, let's assume that the engine's stuck. So at the time of the impact, the RPMs were 2,500 or something like that. Would you go back and look at the engine to determine, okay, what was the RPMs at the time of impact? what are any other factors that may show that the throttle was either stuck or there's some other problem with the motorcycle?
The data that you can collect from some bikes will show that. It might show what gear they were in, what percentage of throttle, how fast they were going, whether they were on the brakes or not. But as far as like going, like you mentioned, how do you know if the brakes failed or there was something like that? With a bike inspection, you would look at all those things. You look at you look at brake pad wear, disc wear, that sort of thing. If you're fortunate enough to get to an accident scene before it's all picked up, you check things like what gear somebody was in.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
that's a couple of things that our first responders, if things like letting a motorcycle lie where it is until a recon person can, because you can match up what gear it is and give you an idea of speed if you don't know.
Interesting.
Sometimes speedometers stick if they're still
Yep.
the old analog. The other thing is air pressure. We're talking about nuance.
Yeah.
And if you can check air pressure, it's critical.
In tires is what we're talking
Absolutely.
about.
Unlike a car where you've got 4 huge contact patches on the ground and maybe one's 10 off, another one's 4 or 5 off, on a motorcycle, that's night and day difference.
How good are motorcyclists at keeping their tires up to date, the pressure good, brakes good?
I think it probably starts off really well, and then like everybody, you start to take it for granted.
Okay.
Different segments of the industry tend to be more disciplined with that sort of thing. Touring riders, and Harley riders, sport bike riders, adventure riders, performance riders, those different segments have sort of a different means of their maintenance and making sure
Right.
stuff is done.
We're going to take a break. We're going to be right back. You've got some graphics to talk to us about motorcycle tires. If you're interested in accident reconstruction or you're a motorcyclist yourself and want to know what you can do to be more safe, we're about to have some information to talk about the main things that motorcyclists do wrong with maintaining their vehicles, and that might save your life. Stay with us.
Your rights, your calls, live. Presented by the Tennessee Valley's award-winning personal injury and wrongful death law firm, Timberlake, League and Brooks. Featuring the knowledge and experience of Attorney Michael Timberlake, Attorney Will League, Attorney Heath Brooks, Attorney William Maservi. And hosted by broadcaster and family law attorney Sharon Doviet. This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Welcome back to 31 Law Call. I'm Sharon Doviet. Tonight we're doing something a little bit different. We're talking about motorcycle wrecks and motorcycle wreck reconstruction. We've got two reconstructionists with it. We've got Will Leake from Timberlake, League and Brooks, personal injury attorneys. You see lots of motorcycle accidents. We've got Danny Roberts, who's a motorcycle accident reconstructionist, and Michael Kerley, who's a motorcycle accident reconstructionist. Danny was a test rider for Dunlop for 22 years, so he knows motorcycles, knows a thing or two about that. Right. Michael started off in law enforcement and accident reconstruction for law enforcement. So we're talking about how you reconstruct the accident scene. Maybe you're working for the motorcyclist who was injured, or maybe you're working for the driver of the car that is being accused of something. So let's talk a little bit about motorcycles and the main problems that you see maybe with maintenance issues that most motorcyclists are not doing a great job on or getting loose with. Michael, start us off with that.
Number one, are y'all particular who works on your motorcycles? And why?
Yes.
Why is that?
I can tell you as a test rider, you test so often, so quick. When you're actually doing it, you don't have time to double check or even often look. You're downloading with engineers. You put your life in the hands of a good mechanic, a reliable mechanic. So yeah, that's extremely important.
So if people are trying to be safer with their motorcycles, where do we start?
I always go to the dealership.
Okay.
It's always been a habit of mine. I know that some people are of cost-saving mindset and it's try to do their own maintenance, but sometimes, especially with a motorcycle, that cost savings can come at a higher price if that maintenance fails.
Don't skip on the tires, don't skip on the brakes.
That's correct.
Or are those the areas that people tend to neglect?
That is common in cars and motorcycles. Those are the two most common failure points that people tend to neglect the most.
We've got a couple of graphics here. So walk us through a little bit about understanding motorcycle tires. What is this telling us?
This is basically just the breakdown of what's on the sidewall of a tire. It's the technical ingredients of a tire. It goes for everything from sizing to speed ratings to how much weight it can carry, when the tire was born, so to speak, the week and the year that it was born. There's a lot of information on the sidewall of a tire. Very, very critical to know.
And to match it with your actual motorcycle, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. That's an excellent point. It's important to know that one motorcycle tire made by 4 different manufacturers of the same size, looks the same, has the same riding, at least as far as size, all 4 of those tires will more than likely not measure the same. And they could be noticeably different.
Okay.
Drastically different.
Okay.
The load ratings, the speed ratings, the construction of the tire can be different. So you could wind up, even though the tire fits, it's not rated for the load, or it's not rated for the speed, or it's just a complete misapplication.
And you're seeing a lot of people using car tires on motorcycles. Explain that. What are they doing?
So we call that in the field is riding the dark side, and often we're definitely seeing it in Arkansas. We've seen it in other states. It's moving out east a little bit towards Alabama as well. And what people are typically doing is trying to get more longevity out of their tire usage. And car tires were not designed to be put on motorcycles. And they are specifically prohibited from that. For design and usage, motorcycles are meant to be lean to turn.
Right.
Well, car tires are not. Their profile's not designed for that. Their sidewalls are not designed for that. So we are finding that in a lot of these accidents that we're working lately, where people are trying again to circumvent maintenance and trying to save on costs, where those costs are coming at a price.
And what do you guys run into in the sense of, okay, if I've got a client and he has manipulated his motorcycle to add an aftermarket part or put on a tire that wasn't meant for that particular bike, oftentimes that'll negate warranty if you're not using that bike for its intended purpose, or you put a non-approved part, tire, or anything like that on there. So let's say it's a reconstruction. There's a motorcycle wreck and there's a vehicle, and you find that, let's say the I won't say gas, but let's say there's the governor.
Anything, handlebars.
Let's
it could
say
be
let's say
handlebar
the handlebars are so high up there
Okay, gotcha.
that I can barely. I like those ape hangers, right?
Yep.
But I can barely touch the brake, or I can barely
right.
whatever. But I look cool doing it. Now, in some jurisdictions, you're out of luck if you've manipulated the bike where you can't operate it safely. Do you run into a lot of aftermarket garage mechanic situation that that was the cause of this particular wreck, whether put on a tire backwards or anything like that?
Yeah, that's common to some degree. Like things like tires mounted backwards. Some states have laws, like you were talking about the handlebars. Some states have laws as to how high you can actually have them. Go to Bike Week in Daytona and you'll see there's no law that applies because it's all over the map.
Right.
But yeah, motorcycles are rife with aftermarket componentry. Lots of things. I mean, everything just about, other than the core chassis of the bike. And not all those always work copacetic with that motorcycle. So there's a lot of product liability issues. And just like I was saying with tires, a lot of these issues that you can mount from one bike to another, they're not tested on all these bikes.
Gotcha. And when you say putting a tire on backward, what if it goes on and it fits? What's wrong with that?
Well, there's an arrow on a tire that tells you which direction.
Okay.
It tells a mechanic how to mount it. But so what's wrong with it is the way the tire is actually manufactured,
Okay.
designed, developed, and tested. So the integrity of the tire can be compromised if it's run backwards. You're also going to get less wet handling performance, hydroplaning, that sort of thing.
So it's made in the track.
It's
The
made
tread is made a certain way.
Yep.
So if you had an accident and you're representing somebody who is accused, and you can find out that the motorcyclist who hit them, who's accusing them of causing the accident, had the tire on backward, would that make a difference in the state of? I mean, is that enough?
If that particular rider did the work himself or should have known, and he placed his motorcycle in the stream of commerce or on the public roadway and then caused injury to someone else from that, I don't want to call it illegal, but if you're putting a part on a motorcycle that's not an approved list from the manufacturer, that's dangerous enough for yourself, but also the other folks, on the road. And I've been doing litigation for almost 30 years. Some of the motorcycle cases that I've handled often are death, horrific injuries. They're very serious, very fast.
Yeah.
And I rode motorcycles up until the age of 35. And I was doing this and represented so many people that are hurt so bad that I sold my last one a decade ago and hadn't been on another one, and counseled my kids and people that, really, I want everyone to get their thrill and be on the road and do their thing. But you got other drivers who aren't paying attention. It's oftentimes the driver's fault that didn't see the motorcyclist. Sadly, in the video we saw at the beginning of this show, the guy was traveling excess of the speed limit and caused himself damage. There's serious cases, and we'll call these guys in because there's a prejudice against motorcycles. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
I've tried many of these cases, and the jurors are like, well, they must be crazy. They must have a death wish because they're on a motorcycle anyway. And so we spend a lot of time here in voir dire saying, do they have a right to be on the road? If they have a right to be on the road, if everyone follows the rules, then okay. If they do not and they cause injury or death to a motorcycle rider, then we have to call these guys in to do a reconstruction to show to the jury that the motorcycle was not doing anything wrong.
When you investigate, do you talk to people, like witnesses? Do you go talk to witnesses? Is that part of the investigation?
It is, actually. We'll talk to witnesses. We'll also do summaries of depositions. We take into account everything. We take in the totality of the circumstances. We try to look at everything. Now, witnesses sometimes are not always reliable, as I'm sure Will knows in his field, but we try to take in everything. We really are evidence-based and then go from there. We really canvass the area for cameras. We do a lot.
Gotcha.
And
I can give you, I'm sorry, I was going to say I can give you you were asking about the tire.
Yeah.
So this is a few years ago. Had a gentleman, this was in California. Motorcycle went into a sudden 70, 80 mile an hour wobble, big wreck, banged up pretty bad. I think the lawsuit originally was against the tire company, against the motorcycle manufacturer, all the safety, anybody they could get their hands on. Once we did the bike inspection, as soon as I looked at the tire, I saw that the front tire, we're talking, mix and match.
Wow.
The bike called for radial tires, front and
Gotcha.
rear.
Gotcha.
So just like you might have a tire backwards, this bike had a radial rear and a bias front.
Gotcha.
By mistake, put on by a dealership.
We're going to take a
Caused
break.
that guy injury. Sure did.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
Yeah.
Just like to learn more, here's how to get in touch with Danny Roberts, DRC. The number 665-2065. Also check out DannyRobertsConsulting.com. Here's how to get in touch with Michael Kerley, Kerley Reconstruction out of Hot Springs, Arkansas, 501-693-9180, KerleyReconstruction.com. Michael Timberlake with Timberlake, League and Brooks, 256-536-0770 or 800-804-2502.
And our very own Sharon Doviet, 539-7337, SharonFamilyLaw.com. I'm Will League. I want to thank Danny Roberts and Michael Kerley for Kerley Reconstruction. Thank
Really
y'all for coming
interesting.
up and stay up with us
Thank you
tonight.
for having us. Appreciate
Fascinating
it.
information.
Wonderful.
Y'all be safe.